When it comes to figuring out influencer payment, is there a specific metric that is based on?
Look at your median engagement. How many engagements do you get normally on a piece of content that you get? Multiply it by a benchmark for a cost per engagement, and that should be your fair rate.
You said that there are not a lot of influencer marketing specialists in South Africa. Is there an opportunity, and what would you recommend that they do?
The answer is yes. It is absolutely an opportunity, and you got to focus on building strong individual relationships who themselves will open you more relationships.
Hello, and welcome to South African Tech Marketers, where I uncover the journeys of marketers who are absolutely thriving in South Africa and beyond, in the hope of helping you do the same. My name is Kirsty Lang. I am a marketer working remotely in Cape Town, and today's guest is someone who is not just building brands, but reshaping the way we think about influencer marketing at a global scale. But first, a quick thank you to our sponsor, the Global Talent Company. If you're a South African marketer looking to land your dream remote job, or if you're hiring and want to tap into exceptional local talent, do head over to theglobaltalent.co. The link is in the show notes. Now, with me today is Pierre Cassuto, Global Chief Marketing Officer at Humanz, an AI-powered influencer marketing platform. Pierre also chairs the South Africa's Influencer Marketing Committee at the IAB and has decades of experience in digital marketing strategy and content, from his early days in creative media to shaping global narratives at Ogilvy, Kagiso Media, and now Humanz. Pierre, welcome to the show. I am so excited to dig in with this one.
Kirsty, very happy to be here with you.
Thank you for making time. I have a very, very long list of questions that I want to ask you, because your work touches on so many things that I'm working on right now and things that I'm fascinated by. But before we dig into all of that, I would love to start with your journey. So from Ogilvy in Paris and Cape Town to your current role at Humanz, I would love to hear how you got your start in marketing and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So my name is Pierre, which is a dead giveaway for the fact that I'm originally from France, probably the most cliche French name you could think of. But I've spent about half my life in France and the other half in South Africa, with a few other countries like the US in between. And I first moved here as a teenager, went back to France, and started working for Ogilvy in Paris. And one day got a phone call from my dad, who was still living in South Africa, saying, "Hey, I need you to jump on a plane tonight to bring me 20 kilograms of latex." And it was a very random phone call. But he's a TV producer, and he was starting a TV show with Zapiro called ZA News, which was like puppets of famous politicians like Jacob Zuma, Julius Malema, Helen Zille.
I remember it well.
And he needed that latex overnight because they were starting to shoot the show and needed to produce the puppets. So I jumped, the latex was delivered at Ogilvy offices. I got onto a plane and I decided I didn't want to leave. I never left. So I called Ogilvy from South Africa and I said, "Listen, I'm going to come and pick up my stuff, but I am not really coming back." I started working with him for a few months and eventually got a call back from Ogilvy in London asking me if I wanted to work for them in South Africa. So clearly no hard feelings, and I was very lucky. I took over Ogilvy Interactive Johannesburg for a couple of years, helped turn that business around, went to Kagiso Media, where I was headhunted, and eventually moved into different positions, Ogilvy Media, a few other places, and eventually found myself joining Humanz at the very, very, very beginning of the company with the other 5 co-founders. And it's been a thrilling experience ever since. I think Humanz is not just a South African company. We operate in 6 countries now. South Africa is our smallest office, actually, but it's also one of our most interesting ones. And so I'm based here in South Africa, but I spend about half the year outside in other countries like US, Europe, Brazil, Israel, Turkey, etc.
Amazing. Yes, thank you for all of that. So many rabbit holes that I want to go down, but most importantly, Humanz. I'm fascinated by influencer marketing kind of because I straddle both sides of that. I'm a creator, but I also work with influencers. I've led a couple of influencer marketing campaigns, candidly, not very successfully. But yeah, I'd love to learn more about Humanz and what sparked the idea to found this company.
So we started Humanz 7 and a bit years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 and a bit years ago. influencer marketing was growing really fast, not in South Africa at the time, but in other markets. It was growing really, really fast. And even in Europe or in the US, when we ask people, how do you know which influencers or creators to work with? How do you know how much to pay them, if it's been successful? The answers were not very professional. They were quite evasive. Well, I look at the content, and if I like it, probably they have the right audience and the right person. If it's a beautiful woman in California that's working out, probably her followers are going to buy female workout equipment from her. And we're like, but what if her followers are more Russian males? Like, how does that help you?
Good point.
That was part of like what we started looking at. How do you decide how much to pay her? Well, it depends on how much she asks for. We're like, probably both sides, creators and marketers, probably have a better way to kind of work that out. So, my kind of 5 partners are all technology people, either mathematicians or software engineers. And so we decided to build this kind of big platform that would help discover influencers and understand which ones you should work with and how much you should pay them. And we started really with the premise that to make the industry better, we had to help the marketers better vet influencers and creators. But in 7 years, what we've learned is that that's table stakes. What the industry really needs is better tools for transparency, better tools for motivating, empowering, and allowing both partners to work in a more transparent and more rewarding environment. And that's what we've made our mission. So not so much, giving marketers all the tools to vet those cheating creators who are buying bots and it's kind of this very kind of one-sided relationship, but instead help them treat influencers not like billboards, not like a piece of outdoor media or any media that you buy, but instead connect them more to them like you do in the human resource system, which is around clear goals, long-term relationships, clear ambitions, transparency on both sides, and potentially variable remuneration as well if the relationship goes really well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love all of that. You've basically answered my next question as well. I would love to know, super in the weeds here, when it comes to figuring out influencer payment, is there a specific metric that is based on? So are you looking at follower count? Are you looking at engagement rate? All of these kind of numbers are held up as these, I almost feel like vanity metrics. So I'd love to figure out what goes into that calculation.
So I'm going to give you first a kind of broader context answer. That's the kind of like saying nothing answer, but I think just important. That depends. But I'll give you that context. And then I'm going to give you like a bit of a cheat sheet so that if creators are listening, they at least have a starting point of where 80-90% of the brands globally go to now. So the it depends answer is that influencer marketing isn't one thing. Influencer marketing is a practice of how marketers spend their budget, but it's very much like what digital was 20, 15 years ago, depending on where you are. Everything became digital, but it became a subset of activities that specialists would do. But creating a banner or creating a Facebook page at the time, or building a website or building e-commerce, that was all called digital. Yet they are very different activities that actually fit in different subsets. PR started doing digital, TV, or YouTube videos, online content. And so influencer marketing is also this umbrella word that doesn't represent really a niche. It represents many niches, but it represents this transformation of the world of there are a few big players that control content and distribution, to now everybody, whether it's a consumer, whether it's an employee, whether it's an independent content creator, whether it's a celebrity, they can be part of the media distribution as well as the content creation process. And so it's a transformation of the industry that's been given a word rather than a specific set of practices. So why I say it depends is because if you're working as part of your media budget with a podcaster or a YouTuber and you've got a long-term sponsorship, then really you need to evaluate it the same way you evaluate your other media properties, which is what are the views I'm getting out of that? And what is my cost per view? What is the audience? Am I reaching the right audience? And what is my kind of cost to reach that audience? What is potentially through a brand lift study, the impact on their perception of our business?
Yeah.
Or if I'm trying to do affiliate, what is the kind of traffic and sales I get from that property versus other properties? That's very different from when I work with one-time kind of content creators or TikTokers or Instagrammers to create a bespoke piece of content for me. Now I've got to look at it in the space of, hey, this piece of content versus my own branded content, do I get better engagement and response to it than when I publish something on my side? If I'm using it as ads, how are those ads of other people's content performing to my ads? So it's a nuanced answer, because what you've always got to do is you got to bring it back to something else that you're doing so that you can compare it. And if you're investing now in influencer marketing, try to equate it back to another set of activities you're doing and compare the performance relative to what you're doing in that other activity. Just with the transformation of someone else is saying something about me versus I'm saying something about myself.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That was like a great answer to like a very simplistic question. But you said you were I mean, my question was probably not clever enough with that answer, but you said you had a kind of a cheat sheet that you were gonna share.
So the reality, and I'm going to speak to the South African market specifically here,
yes,
is that influencer marketing is still less than 1% of all digital media spend, according to an IAB study that was done last year, which is a tiny percentage, which means there are very few specialists. So we have to go to kind of cheat sheets and things that make it easy for everybody to work in that. There's very few investments in long-term relationship with YouTubers and podcasters. They exist, but it's a tiny portion of the budget.
Yeah.
Most brands default to what they know, which is Instagram and then secondary TikTok. Very little on YouTube right now in South Africa. Instagram and TikTok, which is I'm going to commission a piece of content from a creator to say something I want to say about myself. So again, not kind of long-term relationships, sponsorships, but more kind of transactional content creation. For that, there are two things that creators should think about around pricing. One is around kind of usage rights around that content and media over an extended period of time. Yeah. But the really simplest one is your cost per engagement. That is the simplest metric that you can do and model and check against your rate card. Meaning, if you're going to charge somebody to post on your Instagram page or TikTok page, look at your median engagement. How many engagements do you get normally on a piece of content that you get? Multiply it by a benchmark for a cost per engagement, and that should be your fair rate, right? Understand that there's a risk. One piece of content might get 10,000 likes and comments. One might get 1,000. That's why we use median rather than average. Like if you take the last 15, what does number 8 look like, right? But based on that, what is your fair pricing for that brand? In South Africa, each industry has got a benchmark cost per engagement. We publish those annually. They're available on our website for free.
Okay.
And you can see
link to them.
I create like personal finance content or beauty content or food content. What is the benchmark cost per engagement in South Africa for that industry? And then you can look at your rates and see if they're fair. Just when it comes to napkin maps, obviously there's a lot more factors. Like, are you having like very expensive production costs? Is your content differentiated? Is it part of a long-term deal and agreement? Just napkin, just cheat sheet. Just know what your cost per engagement is and what's based on your rates and whether you're competitive in your vertical.
Okay, I'm literally going to go and do that for all of my accounts as soon as we get off the call. That's a brilliant way of calculating it. It feels complicated, but actually it's probably the most meaningful way to kind of benchmark yourself as a creator. Because, I think simplistically, so many brands, particularly in the South African market, will think, okay, how many followers? For someone who is a macro influencer or micro influencer, we pay them this much. But actually, is that even going to guarantee that level of following? For example, on a platform like TikTok is quite chaotic because they get 300 views, even if they have 10 million followers. So yeah, very, very cool.
We had Lesizwe in our office. We had an event just a few days ago in our office. And
he's so cool. I love him.
And he's fantastic. And he is very knowledgeable and very willing to share that knowledge with other creators. And he was saying one of the things that worries him the most about the industry for him, that keeps him up awake as a big YouTuber with a big following and a big audience and a big name, is that now anyone can go viral anytime, and it's very difficult to keep it going. So it doesn't matter how many followers you have is completely irrelevant today. Maybe in the world of press, other people talking about you, keeping an eye on you, etc. But in your content performance, it's not your followers. It is completely uncorrelated from the performance of your content. Each piece of content is competing in its own merits. So every marketer that looks at number of followers and pays according to followers is completely in the wrong space. Talking about macro, micro, nano is irrelevant today. In fact, what the IAB recommends in their white paper is to completely go away from this and instead look at the role of the creator to the audience when you're partnering with them. So I'm a beauty brand. Am I partnering with a dermatologist? The dermatologist can't endorse me the same way a celebrity would, and I can't work with them in the same way, right? Is this person a customer? Is this person a staff member? Is this person, somebody who reviews a whole lot of products. I cannot have the same negotiation around exclusivity, around scripting that I can have with a brand ambassador I'm going to put on a billboard. I'm not going to put a derm on a billboard, right? So influencer marketing, again, micro, nano, irrelevant, because how many followers you have doesn't impact like your expected performance. But the role is more important strategically, and then kind of median performance and how each piece of content does on average is more important than the number of followers.
Okay. Influencer marketing is a lot more complicated than I think. I've been a marketer for years. I've worked on influencer campaigns, and I've never thought about it in this level of depth. And so I want to pull on a thread that you just mentioned. You said that there are not a lot of influencer marketing specialists in South Africa. Is that an opportunity for South African marketers now who are early stage career, mid stage career, who are listening, if they want to specialize in something like this? Is there an opportunity, and what would you recommend that they do to specialize there?
So the answer is yes. It is absolutely an opportunity. And there are a few specialist companies in South Africa that are well known for kind of influencer marketing, and they're good training grounds because you learn different things, and then you'll be able to then expand into other organizations that will recruit you, whether it's traditional agencies or marketing organizations, Unilever, L'Oreal, etc., that are going to be recruiting specialists to run this internally. In the US, 3 years ago, and still to date, influencer marketing specialist or in-house influencer marketing manager was one of the hottest positions, and people would move every 6 months because they would just get a higher offer somewhere else that would move them there. But guess what? They kept their relationship with creators. They kept their relationship with influencers, agencies, creators, etc. And so they were very valuable to another organization that said, hey, I need somebody who has those relationships, knows the world, is able to pick up the phone and make me relevant, or make me able to have conversations with those creators. So it's a very attractive position. It's a very rare position, and it requires strong relational skill sets, obviously strong understanding of marketing as well. But it's also very instinctive, because done right, influencer marketing isn't like buying media when it comes to kind of banners, programmatic, etc. It's very relational. And it's about, as I said, motivating, empowering, and working on win-win relationship between yourself and creators. And so one of the big challenges, maybe I'm preempting your questions, I'm sorry, but one of the big challenges is scaling it, or trying to treat it like an activity you can start at scale from day one. You cannot start it at scale. You've got to learn to walk before you can run, and you've got to focus on building strong individual relationships who themselves will open you more relationship. So it's a much more human activity and a much more time-consuming activity than traditional digital advertising.
Amazing. Okay, and so that relationship building is obviously going to be an incredibly time-consuming as part of an influencer marketing specialist role, which is where something like Humanz comes in, I would imagine, to help them kind of manage the things that can be managed. So I'd love it if we could kind of talk about the platform a little bit more and how you're leveraging AI to kind of make sense of a very complicated ecosystem.
Sure, no problem. So very few people understand our platform properly when it comes to creators themselves, or from kind of outsiders, because there's the tip of the iceberg that you can see. That's the kind of part that you're exposed to, but there's kind of everything that happens behind the scenes, and the portion that few creators are see visibly. I'll share one stat with you. So we launched in South Africa in 2019, and we've grown kind of steadily since. But one of our biggest challenges has always been, how can we expand the industry, grow the industry, give more opportunities to more creators? And so when we launched in South Africa, we launched a feature called the Marketplace, where we thought our platform normally is a brand that invites influencers. Let's flip it around. Let's allow creators and influencers to basically approach brands or say, or put their hand up to work with brands on a specific piece of content. And that really took off like wildfire, but it's like 10% of what happens. Yet it's the kind of most visible part of it. So since in the last 12 months alone, we've paid over 15,000 creators over 100 million rand in South Africa, which is a nice number, right? Like, it sounds great. We won a tech award recently for essentially creating these opportunities for young people in South Africa. 15,000, nice number, except over 170,000 people approach brands in the last year alone. So it's less than 10%. So it's a very momentous challenge. And even if we keep trying to reach it, it's really difficult to get to give everyone an opportunity. There's way more supply than demand. There's way more people that want to work as a creator, as an influencer, because it's attractive and it's low barrier to entry than there is demand from brands currently. So we're always trying to figure out strategically what the right approach for it is. And it's not unique to South Africa, but it's very accentuated in this market. So what are we trying to solve? We're trying to solve for on the one hand, finding more opportunities for creators in this market. And so if there's limited budgets, limited demand, that might mean trade exchanges in some cases. It might mean affiliate campaigns in some cases. It might mean performance-based remuneration, where the brand says, well, I don't know who I want to pay, but if they reach those numbers, then I will pay them. So we're creatively trying to solve for these other ways to extend budgets or to give people an opportunity to prove themselves to the brands. Obviously, the flip side of that is that, in an ideal world, there would be enough opportunities for everybody. But it's like the world of professional soccer. Everyone wants to play soccer. Only a few people can be Messi or Ronaldo, right, on a regular basis. The other part of it on the marketer side is we try to expand their capacity. So their ability to focus on the relationship and manage more and more relationships successfully. Not necessarily to scale it from the beginning, but to spend time on the things that only a human can do. So all the things that can be done by machines, by AI, or by our software, we try to take it off their hands. So when you look at creators, knowing more information about who they are and their background, getting an AI summary on who that creator is and what their content looks like, understanding what their audience is, seeing if there's a match with your target audience, forecasting their CPE, like we were talking about earlier, contracts, payments, measurement, all these things are automated in the system, not so that, you can work with thousands of creators as one person necessarily, but so that you can spend more time on developing strategy, developing relationships, and over time scaling it to larger numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. So much of influencer marketing, at least in the way that I have done it poorly, is kind of, well, we're going to pay this influencer. It feels good. Like the fit is right. The audience is a match, no matter how much research you kind of do manually, it kind of just feels like you put it out into the world and you just really hope that this piece is going to perform because there's a lot of money behind it. And oftentimes, it doesn't. So the idea of kind of being more intentional and driving more impact with what you do spend sounds amazing. I clearly need to go sign up for Humanz.
But the one thing I want to challenge here that's I think is really interesting is most marketers look at this kind of big ocean of creators and go, who would be the perfect creator for us? And it's a good question to ask. But the best starting point is, who are the people who are already buying your products? Who are the people who are already talking about your products? Start with that. Don't look at, that perfect person over there that doesn't even know about you, doesn't want to give you time of day. Start with the people who maybe you can empower, motivate, and incentivize to refer you to their friends. That's marketing 101. And that's also, the 101 of influencer marketing. I was at a conference in Europe called Shop Talk that's all about e-commerce. And one of the brand Naos Cosmetics showed how influencer marketing is not part of the media stack, it's part of the CRM stack. So they look at customers and they look at customer acquisition funnel and they go, okay, new customer. And from new customer, we want to move them into returning customer. And then we want to see if there's a churn. If there's no churn, we want to see after X period of time, how do we turn them into brand ambassador? So they don't go, here's a celebrity that means a brand ambassador. They go, who are our customers? And from customers, who can we switch into a brand ambassador role? Which instinctively makes sense. The other thing I want to kind of bounce off in terms of what you said is, you said, cool, we're trying to see who the best creators for us, but they also need, it's like a job interview, and you should treat it like a job interview. So there's two things that matter when you hire people. One is, are they competent? I mean, you can look at that from the outside and say, I like their content. I see how they worked with brands previously. I can see how many followers they have, views they get, et cetera, et cetera. So they seem to be competent. They are a content creator. I like their content. I can see my brand fitting in it. I can see how they've treated other brands. I want to be one of those like that. Cool. Competency, like kind of match. The audience match, like fits mine. But there's another part that's as important, which is motivation. Do they like you? Do they want to work with you? Are they professional? Are you enjoying talking with them? When you hire someone or you work with someone in your business, whether it's a freelancer or you don't just look at competency, you look at the working relationship. And people skip that part when it comes to creators and influencers, but it's as important as the competency part.
Oh my gosh, you've just unlocked something in my brain right now, because I have been trying to hire freelance video editors at the moment. And all of them, I've kind of narrowed it down to a list of folks who are great. And the deciding factor for me now is, are they good to work with? Like, has the email back and forth been good? Are they professional? Do they have all their ducks in a row? Like, that for me is huge and something I've never considered when looking at influencers. So I love that you mentioned that. Something else that I also want to flag is the idea of a customer as a brand ambassador as well, because to your point earlier, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers to go viral now. And in many cases, the smaller creators who are creating more authentically as real customers are the ones that are going to drive real impact, because that kind of authentic engagement is a lot more powerful, I think. You know,
my prediction of the world of influencer marketing is that within the next 3 years, it's going to split into three different worlds. The world of name, image, and likeness, which are your brand ambassadors, which you will treat through, who you put on your billboards, on your ads, how they create content on their page that you then use into your ads. Essentially, that's going to be the world of media. And then you're going to have the world of CRM, which are your customers. So what kind of programs and incentives do you put onto your customers to act as affiliates, or again, create content that you can put into your ads, but you're dealing with them and treating them very differently to how you would treat your name, image, and likeness people, because it's a different machine that kind of deals with them, right? That's the CRM portion of your business versus the kind of creative agency kind of portion of your business. And then the last portion will be your media partnerships, meaning podcasters, YouTubers. Where can I place my brand? Even if they don't, they're not endorsing my product overtly saying they use it, but I'm buying media, where media is now moving, which is no longer just TV and radio, but all these independent podcast or video channels. And right now, all this stuff is in one bowl, but it will fragment into 3 different work streams and 3 different kind of professional capabilities.
Yeah, I love the parallel that you drew right at the outset of the episode, where you talked about digital marketing and how, you say that term now and you're like, what does that even mean? There are so many different aspects of digital marketing. And I think that prediction, if influencer marketing follows that pattern, that prediction sounds exactly the way that it's going to go. It just needs kind of more niching down, I think, for marketers. Yeah. Okay, Pierre, I've talked to your ear off about influencers and asked you some very dumb questions that you gave very smart answers to. But I do want to kind of take a step back, because you are in a very unique position as someone who has worked globally, both, in France and South Africa, but with global teams. So obviously, you've worked with teams all over the world. Do you have any tips for kind of navigating the cultural differences in the workplace as a South African?
I really like working with South Africans. I'm not just saying that because I'm on a South African podcast. I genuinely really like with South Africans. I think South Africans are hard workers. I think South Africans are generally optimistic in life, and that, there's a problem, then there must be a solution, and they make a plan. I think South Africans are great workers and are valued throughout the world as kind of great contributors to the teams. Sometimes South Africans are not the loudest voice in the room, and other nationalities and others can be much louder. And I think it's almost a South African mindset that, it's you're there to do the work, you'll get it done, but you don't have to dominate the conversation and be the loudest voice in the room. And so I think that's one of the challenges sometimes, that the South African voices aren't heard as much as they should be. But in terms of skill set, what I really recommend for marketers in South Africa is you've got to expand your exposure outside of South Africa. And what I mean by exposure is your knowledge and your perspectives. It's really, and the same is true for content creators. I gave the same advice to Lesizwe and to many other content creators in South Africa, which is it's really easy to become a big fish in a small pond in South Africa. South Africa is, at the end of the day, compared to the world stage, a small pond. And so as great as the country is, there are many, many more things happening outside. And because South Africa is right at the tip of the world, it's sometimes hard to get out. It's much easier when you're in France to quickly pop over to the US or to another European country and to be exposed to much more diversity and inspiration. And so I think as much as South Africa is providing inspiration to the world, many South Africans, especially marketers, need to go and get inspiration and knowledge from outside of South Africa as well. And I think that is it's an unfortunate part that we're so far away geographically from some of the other places. But I think it's really important, if you're a South African marketer, if you're a CMO, to travel and to attend conferences and events and be exposed to things beyond the South African circuit.
Yeah, I love that you flagged that. Also, geographically, South Africa feels like a pretty good place to be right now with everything else going on in the world. So, if you can dip in and out of other markets, in a lightweight way, there's a great shout that always stands.
Look where I'm choosing to be right now. It's
right.
Your spot.
It's just great. I mean, as someone who has spent a couple of years working in London and eventually decided to come back, I was just, this is the place. And I love that there are opportunities for us to work globally now from Cape Town or Joburg or wherever we may be. Okay, Pierre, I need to listen to this episode because honestly, I need to go and update some influencer marketing content that we have on Buffer. I think we may have gone a little bit too simplistic there. So really, really appreciate your knowledge and your time. Before we go, what is one lesson that you have learned the hard way that you think has made you a better marketer and leader today?
The one thing that's resonated with me is, and I guess it ties back to the learning points I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that most marketers spend 95% of their time thinking about their product, thinking about their brands, thinking about their business. And so they have a very specific view. They're experts in it and they have a very specific view. But the reality is that most of your buyers, most of your consumers, if they spend 1 hour in the entire year thinking about you, you've done your job. You're great. And so there's a huge difference in perspective between what you think and what they think. The same applies to your relation with influencers and to kind of content creators, right? They are part of your team. They are part of your market. They are part of your customer base / people that are outside of the boardroom and outside of your job, just thinking about your brand, your product all the time. And I think the same perspective applies to every field. Whether it's the field of influencer marketing, I have a different perspective than somebody who's not spending 95% of the time thinking about it. So what I've learned as a CMO is to try to understand that the other person's perspective and mental models are not mine. And my job is to get into theirs and try to understand where they're coming from to get them to come closer to mine if I need them to, or for me to adapt my communication and my way of expressing what I'm trying to express to them. And I think it's a skill you learn when you get married as well. To an extent.
That's a good parallel. Okay.
As a marketer, it's really important that we remember to be the voice of the consumer, and there are as many voices as there are consumers. So we can never take for granted that we know the voice of the consumer as well.
Amazing. Yes. What is that? I'm sorry. I just have to go a little bit deeper here. What does that actually mean? How do you do that? Is that hopping on calls with customers? Is that immersing themselves in content that they create? How does that work?
A little bit of it all. It starts with the mindset of understanding that whatever you understand is not infinite, right? You only understand so much, and you need to be constantly willing to learn and have your own views and your own expectations challenged. So as a CMO, as a marketer, I should always accept that I only know so much and that I'm going to continue learning. And so the kind of dogmatic approach of saying my brand is this is just wrong.
For anyone listening who wants to connect with marketers like Pierre or like me, we would love to have you in the SA Tech Marketers community. It is a Slack space for learning, sharing, and finding exciting new opportunities. You will find the link as well as all of the links that Pierre has mentioned today in the show notes. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.